Hello and welcome to the Buzzerbeater Show. My name is David Jones and this is episode 12 of the Buzzerbeater Show. And before we go to the main segment, um, there has been a story about Kevin Garnett on a podcast. I don't know if anybody of you heard it yet, but Kevin Garnett told a story about how he trash talked Michael Jordan with J.R. Ryder in the 1995 NBA season. So first off, Kevin Garnett at the time was a rookie, and he was like this high school player from Chicago. And he had also a lot of fans in the arena because they played in Chicago. So he wanted to like show who was boss, I guess. And oh no, wait. It was the 1995-1996 season. Yep. And or wait. I think it was the 1996. Yes. Dennis Rodman was already on the team, so it has to be 1996. And J.R. Ryder was still on the team, so yep. So like he was like a as I told you, and he wanted to trash talk him. And he started to trash talk and stuff, like, and J.R. Ryder was like hyping him up and saying, don't stop, keep talking trash to him. And so he continued. And Jordan didn't like that. As you already know, Jordan is a really competitive player, as I already told you in the Last Dance documentary. And this already shows like his complete competitiveness. And Jordan just completely destroyed the Minnesota Timberwolves. As you know, Minnesota Timberwolves are one of the most run franchise in NBA history, and they thought like Kevin Garnett would be the next new thing that would help them and stuff, but turned out to be a gigantic. I mean, they. I think with Kevin Garnett, it's the only time they ever made the playoffs, which really sounds like you messed some huge things up. And so Jordan exploded for points, and the Timberwolves lost, and Kevin Garnett made an expression from him of Jay Ryder, like sitting on the bench completely out of breath and saying like this was a big mistake and stuff. I mean, he can really imitate voice really good and personalities. I'm yeah. I like Kevin Garnett. He's a funny guy. Yeah. Um so then Jordan's and Kevin Garnett's last match off was in 2003 when Jordan was 38 years old. And so I have to tell you that Jordan and Garnett, Jordan was saying like Garnett, he's actually a pretty good player and stuff. And Garnett was like, yeah, I guess I'm he was like actually in the MVP conversation. And in 2003, the Timberwolves were definitely a better team than back in 1996. And so I think they also made the playoffs that year. Yeah, had to be. Like they had at the time they have Sam Cassell. I don't know. Did they already have Latrell Sprewell? Yeah, they probably had him. Yeah, they probably did. And so they matched off, and again, you have to remember, Kevin Garnett was an MVP. He was like a complete, he was a beast. He was not that skinny kid anymore. He had like gained some muscles and stuff. But now, Jordan is not the same as he used to be, and he's 30 years old. And so, what was really weird, Jordan exploded for 40 points. And he just completely, I don't know if they won. I think they won. But it just shows, like, at the last time he ever matched him off, he just wanted to really show that he still was the greatest player of all time. And it just shows his competitive nature and his desire to win. And that's why I just think it's completely incredible what he has done. And sometimes I don't really like it, like his over competitiveness and saying like, oh yeah, that guy just said something mean to me, I'm just gonna completely destroy him. I don't really support that. I understand why he does it. Yeah, you can do whatever you want, I don't care. So, now we're going to the main segment, my top 10 defensive players list. I know I have been just dropping the top 10s right now, but there hasn't been as much content right now in the NBA. I mean, since I started this podcast, there's not been a lot of content. And I know I have now dropped 12 podcasts, and all of those I had like decent, I would say I had some decent and pretty like well content, but the NBA has to come back. I can't, it's really hard to just pull, you know what I mean? If you know what I mean, just drop it down in the comments. No, I'm joking. Yeah. Just it's hard to produce content right now, and I really hope that on the 31st of July, the NBA is going to come back. Okay, without further ado, at number 10 of my top 10 defensive players list, we have Rajon Rondo. For his career, he averaged 4.7 rebounds, 1.7 steals, 0.1 blocks. I know it doesn't really sound that impressive, but you have to remember, Rondo is a very smart player. Not really smart as a person because he had a lot of drama in his career. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. Especially in, was it Chicago? No, I think in Sacramento. But he always knew on the court what to do, especially in the defense. That's the reason also why the Boston Celtics won the 2008 championship. It's not the main reason, it's just with his defense and his effort and his willing not to stop, he just completely dominated, and that's one of the reasons why they won the 2008 championship. So at number 9, I have Scottie Pippen. He's a great all-around defensive player, and for his career, he averaged 6.4 rebounds, 0.8 blocks, and 2 steals. So, I have him higher. He was also, a lot of people underrate his defense. They just say he's like really offensive player. When he came to the league, he was he was meant to be the defensive player. The all offensive things that just came later. When he got drafted to the Chicago Bulls in 1987, everybody said, "Oh, he's gonna be a defensive player. He's gonna protect the rim from the big super teams and stuff." But he did. He did it at the beginning. But then Phil Jackson came along and Doug Collins had to go. The coaches, I mean. And Phil Jackson really showed him that he could be a really offensive. He could be a offensive liability. And yes, and that's why I have him here, because he was actually known as a defensive player when he entered the league. So at number 8, I have Michael Jordan. I would also say he's an underrated defender. I have him this low. First off, so I have this book from Sports Illustrated, which just shows the top 10 NBA defensive player, top 10 list. Most, like, I could talk about that book maybe in another podcast. But just the fact that Michael Jordan in this book is number 3, number 3, it's just complete. It's what? I'm sorry, what? They put Dennis Rodman over Michael Jordan. No, they put Michael Jordan over Dennis Rodman. Are you kidding me? Dennis Rodman is one of the best defensive players of all time. He's gonna come up in this list. What are you talking about? Michael Jordan was a great defender. I know. Just, you can't put him over Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman is one of the best one-on-one defenders ever. Michael Jordan is also a really good one-on-one defender, but he's just not. He's quick. I know. He had a lot of blocks. I know that too. I just don't see him as a defensive player. He is more of an offensive player to me. And I have him in my top 10, so that means he has to be a really good defender. He is. But I'm just not going to put him at top 3. They are better defenders than Michael Jordan. And that's fact. And that's why I made this list. It's just not. It doesn't make sense. So he could lock down in big games if he wanted to. Like, he also had a lack of defense at the beginning of his career. And also a lack of trust in his teammates, which I also talked about in the Jordan documentary. Just, yeah, I just don't see him at top 3 or something like that. So he averaged for his career 6.2 rebounds, 0.8 rebound. I don't know, 5.3 steals, 0.8 blocks, and 6.2 rebounds. That's good. I mean, it's not great. It just, yeah. Sorry. I know a lot of people are just gonna say, "Oh, are you just disrespecting him and stuff?" I'm not. Because of number 7, we have LeBron James. Now I'm just gonna get hated through and through again. I'm just saying. I'm Miami. He didn't like, but the fact that he had this one of the greatest blocks in the NBA Finals ever. You know, where Andre Iguodala ran to the basket and he wanted to lay it up, and he just blocked that. He just blocked it. That is some crazy. That is crazy. And if you're clutch in the NBA Finals in defense, that's supposed to mean that you're probably. That's why I put him over Jordan. Jordan always had this great offensive moments, not really defense. In the book, the Sports Illustrated's book, I think they had LeBron like at 7 or 8. I also have him at 7 now, but just I have him over right now over Michael Jordan. I just don't believe Jordan is that great of a defensive player. I'm sorry. Okay. So, um, he was LeBron was a 6-time All Defensive in the 6th time he was 6 times on the All Defensive team. For his career, he averaged 0.8 blocks, 1.6 steals, 7.4 rebounds. Great all-around defender. Yes, he is. He really is. Like he can defend guy 1-on-1. He can play great team defense. He's a really good systematic defender and also a good 1-on-1 defender. He's just a guy you wouldn't play against. You just wouldn't like to play also on offense. He would just completely destroy you. I'm just saying. So at number 6, we have Kawhi Leonard. So the reason I have Kawhi over LeBron because he actually could lock down LeBron in the finals 2014. Not really 2013, because in 2013 Miami won, but also because Ray Allen hit that crazy shot. If you don't know, the Miami Heat, they had like this dynamic, that the big three with D Wade, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James. They formed in 2010. And they lost to the Dallas Mavericks and Dirk Nowitzki in 2011, which was one of the most underwhelming performances from LeBron James. And then they played the OKC Thunder in 2012. They won, but close. Like, the OKC Thunder had... Oh, wait. They already had... They had Westbrook, Harden, and Kevin Durant. I mean, that was a really hard young core to beat. And they still did. And so... Kawhi was one of the reasons why they won the 2014 NBA Finals, and that's why he also won the 2014 Finals MVP. Because he was the main reason they won, because of his defense, and that deserves a spot over LeBron and a spot on this list. And if you get nominated for NBA Finals MVP because of your defense, that is incredible. That is really good. So for his career, he averaged 6.4 rebounds and 0.6 blocks and 1.7 steals. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, he's a really good defender, and I think he could actually get a spot higher because he's still playing. LeBron is still playing. Rajon Rondo's also still playing. They could all go up in the list. I don't really think about Rondo or LeBron, but I think Kawhi still... I mean, now Kawhi has, like, also developed a kind of offensive game. He's just shooting threes like crazy, and he's the reason why the Toronto Raptors won the 2019 NBA Finals. And that was more about, like, his offense, not really his defense, but... Yeah, so at number 5, we have Kevin Garnett. I just talked about him before the main segment, but here, Kevin Garnett, one of the best defenders of the 2000s. That's a fact. He's probably even the best defensive player of the 2000s. And as for his career, he averaged 10 rebounds, 1.5 steals, 1.4 blocks. I mean, he was more known for his offense in Minnesota, But then when he went to the Boston Celtics in 2007, he was with Rondo the defensive court. He was the they were the they were the main defensive guys on the team. It's just that's a fact. Like he averaged 1.4 blocks for his career. That's pretty impressive, and 10 rebounds. That is pretty good. I mean, and now I'm just going to stats here, and I know a lot of older NBA fans are not really amused by us younger generations using all those stats, but stats sometimes really show, especially like underrated stats, like defensive stats, that really show like how good of a player he was. It's not always about offense. It's also about defense. They're both offense and defense are equal, but just defense sometimes just gets a little underrated, if you know what I mean. So at number 4 we have Wes Unseld. I know a lot of people are gonna ask now, who is Wes Unseld? Wes Unseld played from the 60s. No, he played, his main time was in the 70s. He played for the Washington Bullets. That was like the team he was known for to play. And he has like this afro or had his afro, and he was also like really known to be an undersized center. He was a center, and he wasn't that tall, but he's really great rebounder, because for his career he averaged 14 rebounds, and he was an undersized player. That is great. That is some really great. That is great. And he has a one-time MVP when he played for the ABA. I mean, on a like when I would make like a top 10 ABA list, he would be like definitely top 5 or something. Dr. J would be probably the best player from the ABA. Still, I just think he's really underrated. A lot of people don't actually know him. I think a casual NBA fan, I don't know, do you guys think I'm a casual NBA fan? I would say I'm not. Just, I don't really know who Wes Unseld is. And I like Wes Unseld. He's a guy that you wouldn't think like he's an NBA player if you just look at him. But he is. You would think like he's maybe even a football player. Because he has, although he looks really chubby, he has a lot of body mass. And he has like a lot of muscles. I just think Wes Unseld is a really underrated player, and he's top 4. Yes. So at number 3, I have the Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. Very good blocker. Great blocker from the 60s and 70s. And for his career, he averaged 22.9 rebounds. And he had 4-time record in steals. Wait. No. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. They didn't record blocks and steals back then in the 60s and 70s, so I can't tell you how many blocks and steals he had. I think they just started to do that like in the 80s or something. And that's why I can't tell you the blocks and steals from Mr. Wilt Chamberlain. But there was a block. There's like an actual video of him jumping so high for a block, he actually touched the top of the backboard. You know, like backboards. And he touched the very top. That is some crazy shit. That just shows how good of a defensive player he was. He could jump high. I know he was probably more known for his offensive, but I have him this high just because at the end of his career, he started to not really about his stats anymore. I know he had like a lot of assists and stuff, but still, the fact that he could block shots like crazy, and I don't really. It's really stupid that I don't really show the blocks statistics because they didn't record, and you probably never know because they didn't televise every game back then. It's really bad, but I would say he's maybe even one of the best, like top 2 shot blockers of all time, behind behind Bill Russell. So at number 2 we have the Worm himself, Dennis Rodman, best rebounder of all time, and that's a fact. Best one-on-one defender of all time, and that's a fact too. Stats: 13.1 rebounds. Crazy! He averaged just 2 points, and he averaged 23 rebounds. I already talked about that one in the other podcast, but that is just shows how ruthless he was and how much effort. He always gave his best. And that just shows how good of a defensive player. He could lock down, back with the Pistons, he could lock down Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Johnson, all of those guys. And yes, this is like this just shows how great of a defender he was back then. And a lot of, like, in his own documentary, he said he always wanted to test like the superstars if they actually were that tough, and he actually did that. That is crazy. Yes. Okay, number 1 we have Bill Russell. Yes, Bill Russell. For his career, he averaged 22.5 rebounds. I can't tell you blocks and steals because they didn't get recorded back then. Also a very good rebounder, but he's the greatest blocker of all time. And I'm gonna tell you why. He blocked players that were taller than him, like Will Chamberlain. He blocked players that were maybe a little smaller than him, but like Jerry West. Jerry West was very quick, but he could still block him. And that just shows he's the greatest blocker of all time. And I have him higher than Dennis Rodman just because he made the defense great. It's just he made defense really important. He's the most relevant defensive player of all time. And that's why I have him at number 1, defensive players. And he was also undersized. And still, I mean, if they would have counted the blocks back then, it would just show like 20 blocks per game. I'm not even gonna joke. I'm not joking. And he was even undersized. He was like 6'8" for a center. That's not tall. Like Will Chamberlain was like 7'2", 3", and he still blocked him. That is some crazy stuff. And you have to remember, they played with Chucks, so Converse. They played with shoes that are really bad for your knees. And he retired at the perfect moment with 35 years old. And he just had an amazing career, and he's really well known for his defense. And that's why he's number 1. So, if you liked my list, leave a thumbs up or even like it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Leave a comment down below if you liked it. Until next time, peace!